Hello and welcome back to Logan Sounds Off. Today on my podcast, I'm going to be reviewing a really interesting rock album that was actually sent to me by the band. Not too recently it was sent to me, I will say that. I've had this album, One in a Million, by Rock Paper Sisters for a little while now. This is self-released by RPM Records, 2023. This particular album was pressed. RPM actually Records and Distribution was who made this beautiful copy. Really, loads of cool liner notes. And I was happy to get this on a really cool kind of smoky white bony vinyl. It's really strange. I like it a lot though. I love this album. And this was really cool to first of all get, because obviously I had no idea what was in the music. Along with this as well, we actually have a lyric sheet in there. I didn't know what the music was like, and listening to this was actually really cool. I really love this album, because I was kind of going, what type of music is this? I was really curious. I love the album art actually. I think it's really cool. I was going, I'm really curious to see what is this, and I put it on, and it's immediately my kind of style. Now, along with this, I actually did get a pick as well, which I'm going to show you, but I don't have it on hand, so you're just going to have to give me 1 second. Here is your Rock Paper Sisters pick. Plectrum, this came with it as well, which is really cool. I had the album art on it. It's really cool. So thanks for sending me that, guys. I really do appreciate it. And now I'm finally getting down to discussing more about it on my channel. If you've been a long time follower, you might have seen me post about this when I originally got it. But I'd love to now delve into it as an album after listening to it a lot and really organising my thoughts on it. I'd love to discuss with you guys what it's like and what I think of it. I think it's a really interesting album. And here's why. Starting off with just the first track, the title track as well, One in a Million, which is really an anthem for the album. It starts off the album very well, really loud. You've got kind of jangly noises and a bit of yelling at the start, and then it kind of goes straight into it with this really thick bass sound that I think is really interesting and makes the guitar sound a lot more prominent. They really work together very well, and I also love how distorted some of the guitar parts are, that it nearly doesn't sound like a guitar anymore. It's so distorted in a really good way, as well as some really good vocals in this song. I have to say the vocals throughout this album is quite exceptional, but I really like it in this particular song. And One in a Million really represents the album very well as just the sound of it, the intense sound of it. It's really interesting, very gritty and very loud. I love it a lot. It's a very good track, and it's very good to open up the album as well, to get the listener not immediately jolted into this new kind of album and new setting, because this is a very interesting kind of nearly sound. This album, it kind of slowly brings you into the album, which is really cool, as well as being a really interesting, energetic beginning to the album, which I think is really cool, and it's hard to replicate nowadays, having that exciting start. But it's a really cool song, and I really enjoy it. The next track then on side A is Whenever Forever. And my favourite thing on this track is the slight distortion on the vocals. It sounds nearly like it's over a telephone or something. It doesn't sound direct, as if somebody's singing on a microphone. It's really cool, and it adds another layer to the song that I really enjoyed listening to, and I thought gave the song great depth. I really enjoyed that part, and it's reminded me of other musicians as well. Not in a way that it was entirely copied or anything. You just can hear really cool inspiration there. I think it was really cool though. Again, it's not like it was a copied sound or anything. It was really interesting to hear. As well as this, you've got some really cool drums, really loud drums as well, that accompany this kind of gritty vocal and amazing guitar riff that is really steady and rhythmic, and kind of a cool force that pumps throughout the song, and it keeps going on. It's very interesting, and I love it a lot. Obviously there's a lot of great rhythm to this song. It's definitely something that you nearly swing along to. It's really cool like that, And again, following on from One in a Million, it's just as hard hitting, really heavy. It's cool. It's got this really gritty sound that I love. It's really, really interesting. So definitely check that song out. Then you got Never Be Mine, which I know is a single. I only glanced at the singles, so I'm not entirely sure of all of them, but I do know Never Be Mine was one. And Never Be Mine is really interesting because it's a completely different vibe to One in a Million and Whenever Forever. This continues on a completely different path. It's kind of gentle at times. The vocal is very gentle during the verses. Very gentle during the verses, yeah, and as well in the chorus then you got these really cool vocalizations, really loud yelling. It's really, really cool, very, very interesting, very loud and vast, the singing, and how powerful it is when he's even saying never be mine. It's really, really cool. Overall though, I love the lyricism and the really awesome vocalizations in this. It makes it excellent. And the distorted guitar riff in this is really, really cool as well. And it's something that you'll be humming for a little while. It is a bit of an earworm. It's really, really cool. But also, this is a really iconic track on the album. Immediately when I was looking at my notes and I saw Never Be Mine, the chorus came into my head. The guitar riff came into my head. The lyrics came into my head. Everything about it I can recall, which is really, really cool. It's a nice iconic track that will stay with you for a very long time. It's a very interesting and well written track. So Never Be Mine, yes, is very single worthy, but it's not the same as all the tracks on the album. I'm not saying out of place, I'm not saying it's inconsistent, but it is really interesting and it shows how dynamic the band can be throughout this album, and I think that's really cool and shows nearly an adventurous stage of the album where you go, okay, so it's not always going to be this particular vibe. It does move on a lot more and changes up, and that's really, really cool. So Never Be Mine kind of starts off the entailment of all these new experimental kind of tracks, not in that they're strange or that they're very just different to the opening tracks and what you would think is going to be the setting or the soundscape that would illuminate the rest of the album. So I thought that was very interesting to hear. And on a first listen, you can definitely tell that kind of vibe that Never Be Mine completely changes up the album. It's very, very interesting like that. And I think looking at Never Be Mine throughout the album, it is a very much a crucial point on the track list that really does show how dynamic the band is. But moving on from Never Be Mine, which is an incredible track, I'm now going to be moving on to Evil Queen. And I really enjoyed the vocals on this particular track. Again, as I was saying earlier in the review, the vocals are genuinely very, very good throughout this album. But especially on a song like Evil Queen, it's shown really, really well on this particular track. And there's awesome backing vocals as well. I really, really like the track for this reason. The bass on this song is very, very loud, and sometimes I had to turn down my record player, but not in a bad way that it takes over the album or that it sounds awful or it's purposely trying to be loud. It's just a really prominent bass line in the song, and I think that's really, really cool. The drum is a really awesome kind of, not a swing, but it has a beat to it that is really, really cool to listen to, and I really, really like that, and it gives a lot of the song another tone and another layer to it that's very, very interesting, and I think makes the song and also the album a lot better. I really like it for that reason. As well, something else that's shown on a lot of the other tracks, but I do think is shown the most on Evil Queen, especially when it's fading out. You hear how much reverb is in it, not in an ugly way where there's tons of reverb and it's just echoing and everything. This is genuinely some really cool reverb that gives the songs a really cool sound and makes it sound really loud and vast and awesome. So I have to say the reverb on Evil Queen is very, very good and does add another texture to the song that is, I don't think the song would be just as good without it. So I do want to touch on that. The reverb is very good throughout this album, not only with it being an interesting touch, but also the ratio of too much and not too much. It's right in the middle, hitting the sweet spot of that. It has that perfect amount of reverb, which honestly can be quite hard to master, especially on different instruments like a guitar, where there's some bands that use a lot of reverb and people love it, and there's some bands that are very tight and maybe when they try and experiment with the other, it doesn't always work out. Whereas Rock Paper Sisters are fine with either, being tight or reverb. They're really, really cool either way. So I really, really like that about this particular that particular track. Evil Queen really represents that well. And then you have Wings, which is not only a great track, but it's also the concluding song of side A. And this is a really loud and cool finish to the album's first side. Because of how loud and just out there it is, it's really, really cool and really, really powerful, and it pushes hard towards the end of the track. And I think that's to the end of the side, I should say. It's really, really interesting and really, really cool to hear as well. And when you have a song like One in a Million that starts it off really intensely, Whenever, Forever, and Never Be Mine, that kind of lower it down a bit, and then Evil Queen, which is intense but still not as intense as One in a Million, not in a bad way though, and then you have Wings, which kind of completes this cycle. It's very, very interesting. Now, knowing this, anybody who's listened to a lot of albums on vinyl knows that flipping to side B, it's not going to be the same as side A. There are a lot of differences usually on the album, that the album can transition to a completely different sound. So now we're going to be moving on to side A, or side 2 here, which is really, really cool. You have your little 2 lines here, so that's really, really cool. But you start off the side, sorry, bit of glitch there, With You. That is the opening side of side A. And I love the high notes of the vocals on this track. I know that's very hard to get sometimes, getting those high notes, but it's really, really cool. And it doesn't sound forced or pushed. It sounds really good and it sounds amazing in the moment. So I do want to highlight that I do think the singing skills on this track is very good. As well as this, you have a cool acoustic guitar sound that really changes up the sound of the album. So like Never Be Mine, we've got this whole new instrument, not introduced because the guitar is obviously in the rest of the album, but acoustic guitar is a lot louder and more prominent in this song, which adds a completely different texture. Again, like Never Be Mine, adds a new dynamic element to the album, but as well, it changes up the album a bit, because it's not that the sound gets boring at all throughout the album, it's just that sometimes the magic of it can fade, whereas With You kind of keeps you excited with that tone, but as well continues with a really cool instrument like an acoustic guitar that makes it sound so much better. So I do want to say the acoustic guitar on With You really opens up side B well, and you start to get really excited for side B with that interesting sound. Then you have track 7, which is called In the Ring, and In the Ring is this amazingly loud and intense song with an amazing chorus. And I do have to say, the choruses usually pack a punch on this album, but especially on In the Ring it does, and with some really cool vocals and awesome bass lines. The bass lines on this album are generally very, very good, especially on this song. And now, I really don't want to offend somebody, so I cannot pronounce this name. So, here you go. I'm just going to hold it up. You can't even see it. I'm sorry. But I don't know who's featured on this song. I can't say it. But In the Ring's a really cool track that I think follows on from With You very, very well. And although In the Ring has some very intense lyricism, let's say, and some very intense sound, it doesn't exactly clash with You in a bad way. It doesn't contrast either as much as you would think. It contrasts a slight bit, but in a good way, and in a very kind of not jumpy way, but kind of exciting way. And I think that's really, really cool, and something just to look out for while you're listening to the album, because the album does do that a lot throughout the album. The tone does change up a bit, and sometimes the different soundscape that you thought was going to continue for the rest of the album is abolished 2 tracks later. Then you got the song How It All Went South. This is a really cool, feel-good sounding track, but has some quite intense lyrics. So it does sound feel good, but does have some intense lyrics. And I love the guitar on this track specifically. I would love to touch on that I think the guitar is very, very good on this track, and really, really exciting as well, and really establishes a cool sound for the song. I think throughout this album, the guitar is a very important part of it, but I think it was really, really cool, the guitar on this particular track, How It All Went South. Then you have the next track, Into the Night, and I love the bass line and edit here this part of the video. Okay. Into the Night, I love the bass line and how intricate the guitars are on this song. It's insane. I also love the power of the vocals in this track, and really Into the Night is quite a powerhouse of a song to come to the conclusion of this album with Bad Habit, which is a fantastic finish to such an intense album. So Rock Paper Sisters, debut album, very exciting, very cool, very underrated. You need to check it out. It's very, very cool and has some really interesting guitars and bass line. I love it a lot. The drums are really, really cool, and I love the songwriting on it as well. It's a truly incredible track. So, out of 5 stars, I'm going to rate this a solid 4 out of 5, a 4.5 in fact. I think this is a really cool album and that you should check it out. Links are all down below for you so that you don't have to worry about that. And thank you so much for Rock Paper Sisters for making this album and sending it to me. I really, really appreciate it and how cool it is, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next in the future. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please make sure to subscribe. It helps out a ton. Please like, share and comment as well if you feel that you'd like to. It does help me out a lot on my channel. Thanks so much guys, and have a great day. Bye bye.